Red eyes, blue blood inherited from Yhwach, and wings that appeared behind URYU'S back. Add to that, the unique mark that flashed on URYU'S hand for just a moment before disappearing. These are all signs of a great power awakened by the sole survivor of the Auswählen, URYU. But what's the secret behind all that power? And what has Kobo been hiding from us so far about URYU'S power? That's why guys, we'll try to explore some answers to these questions in this video. Do you know guys, if someone had managed to open this book, we would now have most of the answers we want about URYU. Simply because the person who likely knew the extent of URYU'S power was his grandfather Soken Ishida, who recorded all the important information about him, including the reason he survived unlike the other Quincy's. And I'm talking here about the hybrid ones. Of course, besides Soken Ishida, there is also Yhwach. We don't know exactly when Yhwach realized URYU'S power. Perhaps he discovered this when he wanted to do the Auswählen for the first time. And as a result, all the impure Quincy's died, including URYU'S mother, Kachigiri. And this might have been the moment when Yhwach through his shared blood with all the Quincy's, sensed that something was wrong about URYU. I was going to suggest that Yhwach might have known about URYU through the Almighty, just as he did with Haschwald 1000 years ago. Long ago, Yhwach was searching for Haschwald to bring him by his side and make him his right-hand man. In Haschwald's case, Yhwach was interested because Haschwald shared the same power of sharing that Yhwach had. Unlike the other Quincy's who could gather Reishi, Haschwald had the power to share strength, making Yhwach consider him his other half. And Yhwach saw and understood all of this because he was using the Almighty. But I don't think this happened with URYU, because at the time Yhwach hadn't regained that power yet. And that's why I suggested he knew about URYU through the Auswählen. Yhwach likely had prior knowledge of URYU's grandfather, Soken Ishida, who had once been part of the Wanderreich but was no longer there. And I think Soken Ishida seems to have been one of the stronger Stellenleiter within the Wanderreich at the time. Because one of my favorite characters, though I feel sorry we didn't have a flashback about him, mentioned both Soken Ishida and his grandson URYU, and that character is Kilgiopi. And what is interesting guys about Kilgiopi is that while most of the Stellenleiter, if not all except Haschwald, were unable to recognize URYU when Yhwach appointed him as his successor, they didn't know nothing about him. However, Kilgiopi, as soon as he heard the name URYU, he told Ichigo, "There is no way my arrows are stronger than URYU's." And Ichigo was surprised that Kilgiopi knew about URYU. When Ichigo tried to find out more, Kilgi chose to remain silent. So, how did Kilgiopi know about URYU, if not through Soken Ishida? Because Kilgiopi said that Soken Ishida was against their research and advancements. That's why I think Kilgi knew Soken well and knew his strength. And from there he might have learned about URYU. But the important question guys is, what did Soken discover that made him understand why URYU survived? Is it because URYU can change a part of the Soul King, for example, inside his body? Personally, I find this possible because the part of the Soul King grant their holders unique abilities. And the most notable example we have is Okitake, who had the right hand of Soul King for a long time, which allowed him to survive the death when he was only 3 years old. And speaking of that guys, there is a scene that many have discussed and said that this scene is related to Mimihagi's hand. Considering Mimihagi is the right hand of the Soul King, and that mark resembling Mimihagi that appeared on URYU's right hand. So they said it's possible that there is a connection between the two. However guys, I don't think and I don't believe there is a connection between them, since Mimihagi was previously associated with Okitake and represented the Shinigami side. I might have followed that train of thought if we didn't already know the connection between the right king's hand and Okitake and what happened after that. Furthermore guys, the important point is that the mark on URYU's hand was foreshadowed by Kobo both in the manga and even at the start of the anime. I'm speaking about the second core. So in my opinion, that mark, especially the circle, is merely a sign that Yhwach's power within URYU is activating, marking the beginning of URYU's true power. If we go back to the chapter where Ichigo was fighting Yhwach after cutting Ryu in half, the main theme of their conversation was that as long as Yhwach's blood flowed inside Ichigo, It was enough to reject the existence of the Soul King and enough to fight alongside Yhwach, and Yhwach was insisting that Ichigo shouldn't stop him. And Ichigo said that despite this he wouldn't follow Yhwach, because let's not forget guys that Yhwach's blood was activated in Ichigo's hand, which is why he caught the Soul King. In that chapter Ichigo had some injuries on his arm and hand from his battle with Yhwach, and at the end of the chapter, look at what Kobo drew in that sketch. We can see Ichigo's hand with the same circle that appeared on URYU. The same thing happened at the beginning of the first episode of the second core. Yhwach was using his power to share parts of his soul, benefiting from the power of others, and we saw that their hands all had that circle, which can explain that all those souls are connected to Yhwach through that circle. That's why guys, what we saw in this scene likely has to do with the Quincy blood within URYU being activated as Yhwach's true power, and even the Soul King, because when those marks were activated on Ichigo's hand, it happened in front of the Soul King. The same thing happened to Yhwach when he saw the Soul King through the memories shown by Ichibi. The blue blood appeared on his face and eyes, and the same thing happened with URYU when he saw the Soul King the first time in the Royal Palace, and those marks began to appear in his eyes. That's why guys, in my opinion, it all relates to URYU reaching a stage where his true powers have started to emerge, and those marks are merely a sign of that. As for the eyes guys, it could be related to the Soul King's fourth eye, and perhaps URYU possesses it, as some suggest. I have discussed this possibility in a previous video. Or it could be related to URYU'S own special release. I'm speaking about the World Standing. It is true that URYU'S eyes started showing a flash of red at the beginning of his fight with Shinjimaru, right after Yhwach freed him from that seal. But if you notice guys, this effect lasted longer when URYU activated his World Standing, as his eyes turned red while trying to control his power. And if we go back to the theory that Ichigo's final Getsuga Tensho was actually Letz'chir, which means the final form, then guys, during that transformation, Ichigo's eyes also changed from their normal brown to red. Of course, these are just ideas that might share some similarities, but they could also be far from the truth. That's why I believe that the second episode will clarify some of these things, when Ichigo fights Yhwach, and after that he could fight URYU. That's why guys, I'm so excited to see the second episode of this core. In it guys, we will see a lot of things about Yhwach and his background, about Aizen Sasuke, Ichigo in his fight with Yhwach, and maybe also another things about URYU. In the end guys, what do you think about the new power of URYU? The signs that we have seen, either the red eyes, the wings, and also guys the mark on his right hand. Tell me guys your opinions and see you in my next video.